Eloping. So what now? He asked. A quick getaway, she said, shucking off her fancy shoes into the passenger footwell. They were killing me, she said, and gave him a rueful smile because they'd cost a fortune. He knew he'd paid for them. This is the fabulous Kate Atkinson, a novelist of some high order, who also writes some brilliant criminal detective books. Is that a genre you're comfortable?
Well, I'll take it.
Jackson Brodie books.
Jackson
They're a
Brodie
genre
books.
by themselves.
This is Jason Isaacs, who reads the audio and who has played Jackson on the television very well. Jackson's back. Yeah.
Why is that then?
No, I needed to reclaim him,
Right.
I think, so that I was writing him as opposed to writing the TV version of.
But so has he changed, Jackson? What was it
Well,
nice
he's older.
putting his...
He's older. It was very easy putting him back on. He does kind of fit me like a pair of old slippers, which is something that Julia says to him, and he loathes this idea that he's just something comfortable. But I think I was surprised that I knew him better than I thought I did. I didn't have to think twice about what Jackson thinks or how he behaves with people. His son is in this. His son is now 14, I think, so that he's got a slightly different domestic profile.
He's got a grown-up daughter. No, I
His daughter's
remember when
grown
she was a
up.
teenager.
I remember when she was very small.
Yeah.
So he's moved on. I think perhaps he's feeling his age a bit more.
I don't want to give any of the story away, but I'm very lucky I have to read it so far. I haven't done the recording yet. And it goes into areas I'm curious whether you research or whether you imagine it all. I know you fill out, you imaginatively fill people's lives and telescope their timeline so that you spend an entire life with them. But in terms of the details of crimes and the solving of crimes, how interested are you in authenticity?
I don't normally research Jackson Brodie books a lot. I have a couple of policemen who will put me right on kind of forensic detail, put me right on police procedure. But even then, everything changes so that you can be writing something, I could have written something in, 2003 or whenever case histories, that would be completely irrelevant to how, say, the police force is structured now or the criminal justice system and so on. So I tend to keep that slightly abstract. And the crimes themselves...
which is pretty dark and
with
nasty.
This book, we go to some very dark places. And actually, I did try... It was a bit like dealing with MI5 in transcription. Nobody would talk to me.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted to keep their methods to themselves.
Right.
And I think, well, that's fair enough.
She'd already removed her bridal veil and tossed it onto the back seat, along with her bouquet. Now she began to struggle with the thicket of grips in her hair. The delicate silk of her wedding dress was already crushed like moth wings. She glanced at him and said, as you like to say, time to get the hell out of Dodge.
Because you're always asked, what's the book about? And it's a question that... It's not just I dislike that question, I actually can't answer it. I mean, part of me wants to say, well, read it, listen to it, that's what it's about. But it's also because I don't think of myself writing about something. But then when you look back at it and you think, well, what were the major themes there? And I think with this book, like all the Jackson books, it's about truth, but it's also about morality. So it's like, do you make your own morality or do you abide by other people's rules? Do you break the law in order to do a good thing and be a good person or not? And it's that sort of choices. And Jackson's always making those choices because he tends to break the law quite a lot. And I would say nearly every character in Big Sky does something illegal at some point.
Yeah. OK then, let's hit the highway, he said, and started the engine. He noticed that she was cupping the bowl of her belly where she was incubating an as yet invisible baby. Another branch to add to the family tree. A twig. A bud.
I'm intrigued to know how you prepare to read the audio.
Yes, so am I. Well, I woke up this morning. I'm rather jet-lagged. I flew back from America and I thought, oh, bloody hell, I've got Kate's book to read today. Luckily, I've read it. And there's an awful lot of people from the same area of the world. So I'm in deep trouble.
Yorkshire, is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Like Shakespeare, I'm asking the audience to lean in and fill out the wooden O for themselves.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So no prepreparation at all?
I've read the book, yeah. You're so
That's
surprised.
good.
I'm a huge fan of yours. Here's the honest truth. I've done a lot of audiobooks,
Yes.
it's true. And I like to characterise, I like to act a bit. But it's not a play. And the strength of your writing should sing out. It should be people's imagination. They should flesh out the characters. If you act them too much, you're doing something else, and people feel like they're listening to they're listening to a play, and that's not right. So the job is to be a conduit for the writing,
But
to
also
just
for
trigger
the-
people's imaginations.
Yes, but you do need quite a lot of modulation in there because, you're obviously inside the head of
Yeah, but
many
you only want to
characters,
indicate.
including women.
So yeah, but if let's say someone's having some enormous emotional breakdown, you don't want to do it so people think they're listening to the performance. You want them to imagine what it's doing. So you just want to lightly indicate what the writing's doing, what the character's going through. It's very different from acting. And so it's about having a gentle touch and allowing the writing to flow through you and getting out of the way of the story, frankly, in your writing. So all the pressure's on you, not me. The past counted for nothing, he realised. Only the present had value. Wheels up then, he said, and put his foot down on the gas. On the way, they made a detour up to Rosedale Chimneybank to stretch their legs and look at the sunset that was flooding the vast sky with a glorious palette of reds and yellows, orange and even violet. It demanded poetry. A thought he voiced out loud, and she said, "No, I don't think so. It's enough in itself." The getting of wisdom, he thought. There was another car parked up there, an older couple admiring the view. "Magnificent, isn't it?" the man said. The woman smiled at them and congratulated the happy couple on their wedding. And Jackson said, "It's not what it looks like."